What is the difference between these shapes and shapes like these or something like this? What is the difference? Today we are talking about the differences between geometric shapes and organic shapes. This is something that a lot of art teachers talk about and go over with their classes. And the truth is, I'm not exactly sure why this is important, but I do know that geometric shapes feel a little bit different in artwork than organic shapes. And so we're going to talk about those differences. I'm just going to show you some different objects and see which ones you think are organic and which ones you think are geometric. So people sometimes say that organic objects are things that are found in nature, and geometric things are man-made. So like these rigid letters. Look at this bunny. Compare the shape of this bunny to like a soft, real bunny. That kind of gives you some kind of idea, but this shape itself seems pretty organic to me. Some of these shapes on it are geometric and some are organic. So let's talk about these different shapes, and then we're going to do a project today. You don't have to do it how I'm doing it. I kind of made it a little bit mathematical in my mind. But we're going to be drawing a drawing with organic shapes and then one with geometric shapes. And I'm going to be using watercolor over the top of them, and I'm actually going to be using different layers of watercolor or glazes over the top of each other. Just why not? Why not do some kind of technique? This is what it is going to end up looking like. So these are my geometric shapes and these are my organic shapes. So I don't know if my camera is even in focus, if you can even see these. Because I'm doing this by myself, but hopefully you can see it. And this is kind of what it's going to turn out to be. So anyway, let's get started. All right, before we get started with our assignment, I just want to do a really quick little quiz for you, and I would have done this with my students if we were in the classroom. So I'm just going to put some shapes on this paper, and you're going to tell me if they're geometric or if they are organic. Geometric or organic? This one's tricky, actually. I should have ended with that one. What about these? Geometric or organic? Geometric or organic? This is the lens cap to my camera. Geometric or organic? This is our favorite stretchy eraser. Oh, whoops. Eraser. Okay. What about this tricky one? Is this little guy geometric or organic? And what about that? Geometric or organic? Geometric or organic? Fair enough. Geometric or organic? This won't stay in the same place. It's pretty lopsided. But I'm glad I have it. Fresh fruit. It's wonderful. Geometric or organic? It's just a little cookie cutter. What about this cool guy? Geometric or organic? What about this? Geometric or organic? And maybe there's some shapes on here that are geometric, and maybe there's shapes on here that are organic. I love Polish pottery. All right, now what about these shamrocks? Are these geometric or organic? All right, so with some of these things, honestly, I'm not sure if they're one or the other. I remember being in art school and they would say that something is organic, that is, organic things are usually found in nature, you know, like these shamrocks, pieces of fruit, and then things that are geometric are things that are like man-made. This lid, this Lego, they are geometric. But the more really you look at nature, the more you find out that there's real perfection going on in these leaves. I mean, symmetry, and I don't know. There's definitely geometric things happening in nature. So anyway, I think the reason that we teach this in art is so that in your artwork you can see that they have a different feel. So organic things feel a little bit freer, a little bit more loose. Things that are geometric tend to feel a little bit more rigid. So whether that's in illustration or in your drawing. Painting too. So that is going to be I just thought it would be important to point that out before we start this assignment. All right, now that you understand the difference between geometric shapes and organic shapes, kind of, what I want to do is we're going to do two different sketches on your piece of paper. So on this side, we're going to be doing geometric shapes, and on this side, we're going to be doing organic shapes. Of course, you can flip it, whatever. You just need to have two boxes that you're going to be doing these in. You can use a ruler if you want to trace the boxes and make them geometric. So my paper is 12 inches long, and so I'm just kind of coming, I want to go all the way to halfway. You can make these as small or as big as you want. And also, you do not need to use a ruler to draw these boxes. This is just for fun. Just if you want it to look a little bit nicer and more complete, you can draw these boxes in. This box is a geometric shape. You could draw a more organic shaped box if you would like. The only reason I like to use a ruler is just so I can get this middle section so that it is the same. So if I do this, let's do this one at 5.5. We'll do this one at 7.5. And I'll just put a little mark here. So this is 5.5. And this is 7.5. Okay, so just draw your two boxes. Sorry, this part. Usually I would speed this up, but to save time with editing, I'm just leaving these raw and uncut. Sorry about all of the mistakes that I'm keeping in. All right, and remember, these are practices again. This is not supposed to be perfect. You need two boxes. All right, there are my two boxes. Probably took me a little too long to draw. All right, now remember, for your geometric shapes, you can use your ruler to draw them. You can also just use something and trace it, which I would recommend, because why not? I mean, you could use even a Lego, anything. In the organic side, I mean, a hand is very organic, or you can kind of draw your own designs. You can use a pen, you can use a pencil, use whatever you want. I might be using, I'm still not sure. I probably should decide this before I start these lessons, what I'm going to use. I think I'm going to use this graphic pen that I like, these Pigma graphic pens. All right, so let's do geometric first. So what I want you to do is put 3 geometric shapes on the left side, in this left area. I mean, if you're doing it this way, that's totally fine. I don't know why I want mine like this. It might be easier for you to see if I do it this way. So I'm gonna switch it this way. So on the top, I'm going to be doing my geometric shapes. So draw at least 3. And again, you can trace things. You can use the same thing, or you can use different things. I'm gonna kind of just I'm gonna put them far apart. They can definitely overlap your border if you want. And I mean, I could fill this whole thing with circles if I wanted. I kind of want one coming off of it, just to kind of indicate this border. All right, so you need to draw at least 3 shapes in there, but it doesn't have to be 3. And try to overlap at least 2 of them. The more you overlap, actually, the cooler this is going to turn out to be. Okay, so there's my geometric side, and then this is going to be my organic shapes. You can do organic shapes. You could draw just organic lines. I want to have some shapes because I want them to overlap because of the watercolor. So I'm kind of thinking of a Matisse kind of shape here. I'm thinking about like that looks like a gingerbread man, but I was thinking about a leaf. Sometimes I think of these as being just like puddles. Start this one from the side. So at least 3 shapes. Maybe I'll do one more over here. I kind of feel like I want just something coming from the top here. Maybe a little one that just kind of connects these. Okay. You can kind of think of this bottom side as puddles. Now what we're going to do is just paint it in with our watercolors. And I think it's really fun to learn like different techniques as we do this. So we're going to be glazing. So with my paper this way, you can actually see my watercolors. So what I want you to do is you can either paint the background first, or you can paint each of these shapes first and then paint the background over the top. If you paint the background over the top, it just might make it a little bit softer. Maybe I'll do one technique here and another technique here. So let's just get some paint ready. I'm just going to be using maybe 3 colors for these. You can use whatever colors you want. I'm going to be using, I don't know yet. I'm going to be using a red for sure. So mix up those 3 puddles, and I'm dropping water in my watercolor tray just so that I can get enough color to cover these big shapes in. And you don't even need to do this. You don't need to add color this way. You could totally use crayons, marker. You could even do some lines inside of it to change like the different areas if you want. Okay, I'm gonna be doing like a red, an orange, and then like a blue-green. Why not? The color that I use for the background is gonna need to be a pretty big color. So this means that I'm gonna be painting my shapes 2 different colors, and then I'm gonna be painting my background with the other one, I guess. All right, blue-green. So in this top area, we're going to be painting the shapes and then the background, and in the bottom area, we're going to be painting the background and then the shapes. Maybe even like a purple blue would look kind of cool with these colors, but I'm gonna choose like a blue-green. Okay. Let's see. So first I'm going to start by painting this bottom square just because we want it to be dry when we paint our other colors on it. And hopefully you're following along with me. This is this is a different format than I usually do my tutorials. I'm not spending quite as much time. I just think of these as kind of being in the art classroom with you and painting together. Don't worry at all if your lines are not as smooth. Just remember with watercolors, you don't want to keep scrubbing the same area, or you could start to tear your paper. You know what would have been cool is to just like draw the circles in the bottom space instead of these shapes trying to draw like circles, so they just look a little bit more organic because they're hand drawn instead of traced. Okay, I'm just gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna work on some of these shapes up here. So just start painting your shapes in. You can use as many colors as you want. I just chose 3 to make it a little bit more simple. I kind of started painting that one and then changed my mind. That's okay. The cool thing with painting like this is you can come back over this later with more watercolor. You could draw designs and sketches in these different areas. And I don't know, maybe this one's gonna be orange. I kind of want to paint this whole thing orange really bad, but okay, I'm going to paint these blue. And also with your watercolors, I don't know if I said this, but you do need to have water, your watercolors, some kind of brush to paint with, and a paper towel just for blotting off your brush. And you know what, I think part of these shapes on the, well, to tell if it's dry or not, just look at it and see if it's shiny. If it's shiny, then it's probably not dry. Actually, if it's shiny, it's not dry. So also, you can paint, if you want the colors to blend, you could go ahead and just overlap those. Maybe I'll show you what that looks like. I'm just not going to come too close to the edge because it's going to bleed. And I don't want it to bleed out into this shape, but I'm fine with it bleeding on this shape. If you waited till it was dry, then it would be kind of glazed over the top. It wouldn't bleed out into this color. Make sure this is still recording. Okay. And then this one, I'm just gonna paint it even though it's not all the way dry in these other areas. It's pretty dry. And then what I'm going to do is, some of these areas down here are dry, so I'm just going to start painting in. You can either paint in the shapes or you can actually paint in like this negative space maybe around the shapes. It's totally up to you. There's not really a right or wrong way to do this. You could even just paint it with red and it would just look a little bit darker. It would look kind of cool actually. So this is glazing, where we're just painting over one color with another color. What I like about this technique is it's not like we're drawing something specific or painting something specific. It's just letting us look at the difference between these shapes. And if you do go over your line and you didn't want to, like I didn't right there, I'm just gonna grab my paper towel and just pick that up really quick. Haha. Bet you didn't know you could erase watercolors. Oh, look, it's kind of bleeding out right there, but that's okay. I'm just gonna let it. One thing you need to realize about watercolors is you just have to let go sometimes of control and just let it do its thing. But if you don't want it to bleed, you just need to control how dry the layer is underneath, because it won't bleed if that layer is completely dry. And then maybe and I'm using a lot of water, so these colors are pretty transparent. I'm just gonna, oh, I should have just let that bleed. Just ignore that. All right, and we're just gonna let this area dry now. If I want these to kind of bleed into each other, then I start adding the colors right now, but I kind of want them to be crisp, but I don't really want this tutorial to take like 30 minutes, so maybe I'll just let them bleed. We'll just let the colors run into each other, that's fine. Okay, so instead of using the orange again, I'm actually just gonna mix up a little bit more red. And I wanna paint red in this area right here. So even though I painted it in the background, it is still gonna show up. And if you don't want it to bleed into that other color, you just don't touch it and then you are fine. For those of you that don't like when that happens. You can just see I'm just leaving a little like road in between them. But if you do want the colors to bleed, then all you need to do, just paint right into that color and they'll mix. And I kind of do, so. Okay, I'm still waiting for this to dry so I can paint over the top of it. And then this bottom one, I'm just going to, I guess it's time for this orange. Here we go. It's really gonna bleed into these areas because they're pretty wet. So you'll see me just tapping my brush on the paper towel just to get some of, this is a pretty big brush for a small area like this. So I'm just gonna paint this first. And if you don't want it to bleed, just leave a white road. And if you are okay with it bleeding, then you just bring it right over into those other areas, like this. And then they'll just kind of start mixing. Okay, I wish I wouldn't have done that, but that's okay. I should have just waited till it was a little bit more dry. So this is still, don't touch it, bad example. If you touch your paint, it's gonna lift off some of it. Okay, I might just fast forward this part just while this dries so you don't have to wait the whole time because that's kind of a long time. I think I need to change the battery. All right, you can paint another square while you're waiting for this, or you can use a blow dryer to kind of dry it off. I'm just gonna let it dry and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. All right, these are dry, and so now I'm just gonna paint over the top of them. I'm gonna glaze this orange color over them. And I hope I have enough. I might need to mix a little bit more up, but we'll see. So just cover it, and I'm trying not to scrub the areas, especially the areas that are in color. Because I worry that if I scrubbed it too much, it would kind of start to blend in with this orange and to bleed out. So the key with glazing, if you don't want them to mix and bleed, is just making sure that underlayer is dry. Okay, so that's it. That took a little bit longer than I thought it would, but hopefully you have a good example and it can just remind you the difference between geometric and organic, and hopefully you didn't make mistakes like I did right there, or you didn't touch it like I did right there. But anyway, this is just a nice fun practice, and it's very forgiving, and it's not supposed to look like anything specific. One thing that is kind of fun with artwork like this is to try to make it look balanced when you're working more with like an all-over composition where there's not like a person right here. So anyway, if it feels too heavy on one side, maybe add something to the other. If it's too bright in one spot and you don't want it to be, you want it to be all over, then you can add brightness everywhere. Like this orange kind of throws me off in this composition. So that's something that's good to look at in your artwork, is just to look at it and see if it feels balanced to you, if it doesn't. This is enough though I feel like this is enough for shapes for us. I think it's time to move on to perspective next week. All right, I hope that turned out well for you and that you learned something doing those two different examples. Also thinking about composition, how you wanted to just kind of put things together and make sense of it. So we'll talk a little bit more about composition later in this drawing course, but it's probably good to bring up with the things that we're doing. Remember, one thing I would like you to do is to find some geometric shapes in your house and draw them, and then try to find some organic shapes in your house and draw them, just to practice. So like fruit if you have it, vegetables, cans would be geometric. Human figure is kind of an organic thing. Also, one thing that I've been learning more and more, you know, when I learned to be an art teacher, they teach you the elements and principles of art: line, shape, form, color, value, texture, space, things like that. And the more I'm learning about shapes, the more I'm learning that, you know, it's not really true, right? Like the sky isn't blue all the time. It's black and purple and pink and whatever. It's many different things. But also with shapes, you know, things found in nature actually have some serious geometry going on inside of them. When you look at them at like a cellular level or like a microscopic level, they are very precise and perfect. And it's pretty incredible how everything works. But anyway, just a little thought. Thank you so much for drawing with me today. Have a wonderful day.